Hey guys, Jasper here from the Uberclockers, and I have a 800-pound build for someone who uses that kind of currency. Yeah, let's get right into the video. Alright, so I actually managed, so the guy who requested this, he was like, 800 pounds. I don't want to get the R9 390X because I can't justify it. Well, there's neither the 390 or the 390X in here, but it's still an AMD card. I managed to put the R9 Fury in this build, and that is a great card for gaming. You can game it like 4K or 1440p. It's just a beast of a GPU. So it's I managed to do that, and I also managed to put in a solid CPU and some solid other stuff. So speaking of the CPU, why don't we get started on the CPU? Alright, so the CPU for this build is the Intel Core i5 6400 2.7 GHz quad-core processor. The fact that it says 2.7 GHz really doesn't matter. It's not like it's going to perform like worse. It just can do more. More instructions per clock. So this is a solid processor for gaming. Really, it's all you need for for any single GPU. Any of the new i5s, really. I mean, really, any i5 more powerful than the i5 4460 is pretty much good for anything as long as you're not going for like dual GPU configs. And so this is a solid quad-core processor. It is 140 English pounds. All right, let's move on to the motherboard. Alright, so for the motherboard, we have the ASRock H170M Pro 4S Micro ATX LGA 1151 motherboard. This is a pretty cheap motherboard. Well, this was the cheapest like H170 motherboard that was on the English PCPartPicker, and it's like 75 pounds. And cheaper motherboards, you don't really need some expensive gaming motherboard. I mean, the only really good thing about them is they've got, like, my friend has one, and they've got beast audio chipsets. But, yeah, why don't we move on to the memory? Alright, so for the memory, we have Kingston HyperX Fury Black 8GB, which is two 4GB sticks of DDR4 2133 MHz memory. This is 43 pounds for that amount, and I haven't really put this into, American currency yet, so I'm not really sure how much that is in US dollars, but it's 8 gigs of RAM, it's DDR4, so why don't we move on to the storage. For storage, we have the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB, 3.5-inch, 7200 RPM internal hard drive. It's the same one I use. In a build like this, you could justify getting an SSD. I mean, that's possible. I actually just bought an SSD pretty recently, installed it. It was great. But honestly, you don't really need one. And if you're going to get more performance by not getting an SSD, just don't get an SSD and get that more performance, which is the R9 Fury in this case. So yeah, that's the 1TB, 3.5-inch, 7200 RPM internal hard drive. That is a great hard drive for pretty much anything. 1TB of storage, your Steam library might not fit on there. I mean, it probably will, but anyhow, why don't we move on to the graphics card? Alright, so for the graphics card, I have the Sapphire Radeon R9 Fury 4GB Tri-X video card. The fact that it says 4GB of RAM is VRAM is not, it's fine. Okay, it's high bandwidth memory. It's like amazing. It's going to handle anything. It's with high bandwidth memory. Really 4GB is enough for anything at the moment. So with this, you could game at like 4K resolution, 1440p, 1080p. I mean, at 1080p, this card is pretty much pointless. You might as well get an R9 390. But if you want to game at 4K and 1440p, the R9 Fury and the Fury X are great cards for that. I mean, I kind of have a different perspective on what's good for 1440p and 4K. I say, really, if you can get like high or max settings at any of those resolutions, then your graphics card is good for that. If you have to turn the settings down to like anything under high, I would say stick to a resolution like under that. If you guys understood that, like I'd rather run my game at ultra settings 1080p than ultra low settings at 4K. All right, why don't we move on to the case? All right, so for the case, we have the Thermaltake Versa H22 ATX mid-tower case. This is a relatively cheap case. It's an ATX mid-tower, so it's going to be smaller, which is a good thing a lot of the times. And I've never owned a case like this. I was originally going to put the NZXTS 340 in here, which is a great case. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's awesome, but this is probably going to do really well. The case doesn't really matter as long as it's not terrible. And I think there's a side window option for this. I'm not sure. I've never owned this case or anything like that. So it's about 27 pounds. Why don't we move on to the power? All right, so for the power supply, we have the XFX TS 750 watt, 80 plus gold certified ATX power supply. This is a beast of a power supply. XFX power supplies are always good. This is 80 plus bronze gold certified. And so it's really going to handle anything as long as you're not doing anything crazy. So yeah, and it's 65 pounds, English pounds, British pounds. I'm not sure. I don't live in Europe, but yeah. So thanks for watching. This is an 800-pound beast gaming PC. Tell me, I've been kind of teasing this for a while. I've been saying like, oh yeah, you know, I might post a NVIDIA versus AMD video, and I haven't really gotten to it. I'll try to get a video out like that. Maybe like next week or something, but really tell me like if you actually want this video. An NVIDIA versus AMD video is always going to be kind of fun to watch, I guess, and also to record. And so, yeah, thanks for watching.